So please, we come to the next one, and we stick with digital out of home, but we are now moving towards retail media. And I want to welcome Iman Nahvi and Jan Reiners. Please come on stage to join me, and we want to have a little discussion about more scalable digital out of home. We saw the cool immersive stuff, but let's be realistic, the money you usually make, with highly scalable stuff. And please have a seat. So just briefly, Iman Nahvi, he's co-founder and CEO of Advertima Vision. That's a Swiss-based company, and you're doing this already for many, many years, so you're an expert, and I think you waited for many years, you were quite early in the market, and now it seems the time is right? And Jan Reiners, he's account executive for EMEA for Broadsign. I mentioned it briefly already, one of the leading digital out-of-home software companies. You could probably say the leading one, the specialist, and Jan, also great to have you here. Iman, both of us, we spent last week or 10 days ago at New York. I brought home a lot of memories and interesting stuff. You, unfortunately, all got sick. I was the only one not getting sick, so I think it's something wrong. Right, probably. I didn't attend the party, so maybe that's what I did right. But I think it was very interesting, right? I mean, it was really, really fascinating. The NRF was in New York. Sorry, I didn't mention that. And there was a full day retail media conference. And invidis, we're in this industry for many, many years, since 2006. And even for me, I learned a lot of new stuff, and that doesn't happen too often. Really to understand the differences and also how different US is, North America versus Europe in regards to retail media. So many interesting things. But before we start, Jan, I want to start with you. I mean, everyone talks about retail media. It must be a home run for you, or?
Absolutely, right? A platform like Broadsign is definitely can play out its strengths in this regard. And even though the budgets are slightly different if you compare it to classic out-of-home, we see a lot of similarities. And if you look at some of the key things these retailers are looking for, it's really the same for large out-of-home deployments. So scalability is always a big, big topic for them, right? We're talking about thousands of stores often, if you're talking to the big guys in the space, and you have like several different screens per store. So scalability is a big, big thing. In order to manage scalability, they're looking for standardization, automation. That's a big topic for them, right? It's a new era, it's a new space they're going into, so they want to make this in the most efficient way. And obviously, security, flexibility, a lot of things we see in out-of-home as well.
Mm-hmm. Out of home, everyone talks about programmatic. That's the big driver. We all waited for a decade probably for that. And so we have DSPs, we have SSPs. So how do you connect to these platforms? What kind of platforms do you offer yourself? And how different are the ecosystems in North America versus Europe or Middle East or APAC, for example?
Yeah, programmatic is definitely one big driver as well in retail media, but I think most retailers don't start there. So it's more like a step-by-step approach. So you first of all try to set the foundation, and once you have everything is implemented, screens, and what we see as well, if you compare out of home to retail media networks seem to be a little bit more restrictive, especially in the beginning, right? You have a lot of challenges like brand safety, you have a lot of agreements in place if you watch out for, so the blacklisting gets a little bit longer than we see with other out-of-home networks. So it's often like they start with the basics, and then once they tap into programmatic, it's quite interesting, right? It's about, we always think about retail media like in-store screens, but it's obviously much more than this. To be fair, the majority of retail media is in online, right? So we are just like...
we just showed the figures. It's 95,
exactly,
98%. Right. We were always hoping when we attended the conference, we were waiting. The big guys from Accenture, McKinsey, everyone was presenting. We were, please give us the numbers. But unfortunately, nobody has a number. It's 95, 98, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a vast majority.
Absolutely, right? And often like they start with endemic brands, right? So that's the first step they take in their journey, and the next step is about non-endemic brands. And I think this is from a revenue perspective quite interesting, right? Because if you're talking about endemic brands, it's often budgets they already have, right? And then if you put programmatic into the equation, you talk about non-endemic brands, then it really gets like to be getting into access to these incremental revenue streams for the retailer, which is kind of a really nice way to kind of justify why we should do the investment in the first place as well. And then in general, programmatic, I think the overall concept is kind of the same, right? So it's kind of the idea of programmatic to standardize and optimize things. So it kind of would be weird if it's a totally different process. And from a DSP, it definitely varies, right? We have the Omnichannel players, which obviously is quite interesting for retail as well, as we just discussed, right? It's not just in-store screens, it's a combination of different media channels. And it's like some local champions, and this is what we try as well as Broadsign. We want to make sure we have as many connections as possible. So we have the natively integrated SSP, and then try to connect to as many demand sources as we can. And obviously we have some similarities in this regard as well for a lot of retailers, because we're really focusing on the international scale, and most of these retailers are active in several different countries too. So we can make sure we always can connect them to the right demand sources.
Yeah, and you're even speaking faster than me. That's
Sorry.
Everything's fine. I cannot complain. Iman, I mentioned that very briefly. You have been in the retail analytics business for 10 plus years. I'm not sure 10 plus years, but for a long time. Almost. And you have gone through some very difficult years, because retail analytics looked so sexy on paper, and you had the technology, but the rollout and the infrastructure and everything was pretty expensive, to be honest, and it never really, the breakthrough was always not there yet. So now it seems retail media could be the trigger really to bring that really to a next dimension. Why? What is the role of retail analytics and retail media?
Yeah, it is the trigger. So
it's a trigger. Okay, so it's not a discussion anymore.
Exactly. So we are experiencing high traction at the moment on the market, and you're right. The market was too early 10 years ago. But I wouldn't say we were too early, because it looks like being that early on the market, developing the technology, brings us right now into a position where we can actually serve the market, which is pretty good. And why retail media is pushing analytic solutions at the moment is because we have to have a look to online retail media. So the reason we are talking right now about retail media on stage, the reason retail media is one of the buzzwords at the moment, is because online retail media is so successful. So we have to understand why online retail media is so successful. And it is pretty clear. It's about real-time addressability of the shopper based on first-party shopper data, checkout data, retailer data. So leveraging retailer data in real time to address shoppers in real time, every single one of them, performance measurement, audience measurement, sales uplift measurement in a conclusive way, attribution. All those capabilities are the reason online retail media is so successful. And if you really want to bring this success to the physical store, you need sensor data.
Exactly, and that was one of the main learnings we got when we were at the NRF, was really about attribution. That's really so important. You really want to know, what is the effect of the spot you're playing on the screen at the shelf edge? What does it mean at the checkout? And having this data, having this loop, that's really important. And in digital out of home, obviously it's more audience. Here we're talking about transaction. So both of them use the same technology, but a totally different mindset of how you measure success at the end of the day. And that was for me very, very fascinating to see that. But when we talk about sensors on each screen, as we mentioned briefly before, we also need to talk about GDPR. We need to talk about privacy. And also one of the learnings we got, even in North America, our friends where everything seems to be better, these guys have a hard time. And we had some really interesting discussions there. And welcome to our world, North America. It is, and there are good reasons for that. So what is GDPR? How can we make sure that retail analytics at the screen, at the point of sale, retail media, is GDPR, is privacy conform?
The keyword is privacy by design. So we founded our company in Switzerland. So when it comes to the perception of the society, of the authorities, when it comes to privacy, it's pretty strict, like in Germany as well. So in a few years later, we have to say, luckily, we founded in Switzerland, because we had right from the beginning have to think about how to build the technology, the architecture in a way that it's privacy compliant. So we built our architecture in a way that it's edge computing, so you don't send any pictures to the cloud, and on the edge computer, the picture is analyzed within milliseconds, anonymized metadata is extracted from the picture, and the picture disappears. So there is basically a few milliseconds a picture there, and then it disappears. And this means basically there is no personal data available, and you can't even access it. So the architecture is not capable of storing pictures, and this makes us GDPR compliant. Of course, we have to consider as well that the consumers, the shoppers, have to be informed if they want to be informed. So there are stickers at the entrance, QR codes where you can scan it and land on, go to a landing page where everything is explained very well. And this became now our competitive advantage globally. So
Yeah, I see a lot of your competitors, mainly also from China or so, which do a lot of CCTV cameras and everything. They're also now offering retail analytics, and I'm not 100% sure if their solutions are GDPR compliant.
very important, you can't use security cameras.
But they go on the show floor. They will try to sell it there.
I can explain it to them. It's not gonna. If you use security cameras, you will have a privacy problem because it implies that those cameras are for security, not for marketing reasons, and then you will have a problem with GDPR. So you are not allowed to use security cameras for analytics reasons.
Good, one learning already. So that's good. That's good. Jan and Iman, when we talk about retail media, we talk about omnichannel. It's not in-store only, it's not online only, it's really a combination of both. For you as Broadsign, you come from the in-store world. There you digital signage, digital out-of-home, that's your world. So how can you enable your clients really to create these online, these omnichannel campaigns, and what is your role of Broadsign in general?
Omnichannel is obviously really important, right? And what you don't want to end up doing is that you're creating silos, right? So you treat in-store screens as a separate silo and you can't combine it. It's more about expanding existing campaigns that you're already doing in other channels. One thing that we try to help our customers is obviously we enable them through different APIs to don't create a satellite, but to seamlessly integrate our stack into their platforms, right? So obviously, we're talking about warehouse data, we're talking about audience measurement and everything else, so you can combine them and you can measure it as well, right? So it's one thing to expand the campaign across different channels, but in the end, you want to see the results, right? You want to see what was the impact of the campaign, right? And I think this is where we come in with different tools from a reporting side, from the API side, so we can make sure you measure everything across the board.
Data plays a huge role. And Iman, you have done a few pilot installations, a lot of them, and some clients. So how far are your clients? How far are they aware that you need data and there's no retail media without data, there's no AI without data, everything? So how difficult it is in real time projects and in real life projects? Are they ready for that?
Very good question. So I would say 2 years ago, no.
Sorry, I remember always a data lake. Whenever I go to big enterprises, we have a data lake. Don't worry about it. It's like, oh, geez, that's difficult.
No, seriously. When we started to see our customers really understanding what we are talking about was when retailers started to have retail media departments. So no offense to anybody, but retailers don't have a clue about media. So they started to hire retail media departments, which means they brought in media people. They brought in people who understand ad tech, and these are the retail media groups of the retailers, and this is the reason we only talk to retail media departments. So they actually have built this infrastructure for online retail media. They started to build the business. They started to actually generate revenue, and they understand how they can now extend the same capabilities to in-store and leverage what they have already built and extend it to in-store. So this is where we see our proposition being understood. And that's the reason we always say in-store retail media is an extension of online retail media. It's not an extension of digital out-of-home. So that should be understood as well. And
that's the mindset, but talking about the technology at the end of the day, you can use Broadsign for digital out-of-home as well as for retail media, right?
Exactly, the underlying technology is kind of the same, but obviously the different things in the execution itself, but it's in the end it's screens and stores, right? But it's more about the measurement and everything else. But like you said, right, we have really unique data points, which makes it really different to classic out-of-home, right? We have the POS data, we have loyalty programs, so there's a lot of things we can do with measurement in general, right? So I think the big challenge for a lot of marketing departments is to justify, okay, why are we spending such amount into this channel or into this channel? It's nearly impossible to determine exactly like what success did this bring. But obviously with the POS data itself, and we have seen this over the last 2 years specifically, I think we did a lot of brand studies with different customers, but even the whole industry, I think, showed that these campaigns have like significant sales uplift, brand uplift, sometimes up to between 50 and 60% as some of the recent studies. So it's a really successful medium, right? And there are different nice ways to measure it as well.
I would like to add something. You just said it's the same technology as digital out of home. I would say digital out of home is the foundation for it. It's not the same technology that is needed for in-store retail media. So it's a foundation, you need that, but in-store retail media is only going to be successful if you bring those capabilities that made online retail media successful to in-store. And digital out of home is a good foundation for it, the technology, but you need to make the entire ecosystem from CMS to the SSP to the DSP work with real-time audience data, and that is not the case. So there is we have some integrations. There is this CMS Sinjurin, for example. They can deal with real-time audience data, and there needs to be CMSs need to move towards that ecosystem that is capable of using real-time audience data. And only that is going to bring the capabilities of online retail media to in-store, which is the only way to incremental retail media revenues in-store as well. Putting a screen on a wall without real-time audience data, without real-time addressability, without conclusive sales uplift measurement is not in-store retail media, and therefore it's not going to lead to incremental sales.
Jan, do you have already clients? Can you name a client or so, a retailer or so, who's using your platform and it's successful with that with retail media?
Yeah, one of the probably recent examples, we just partnered with Coles in Australia, so I think that's probably well known for the ones in the Epic region. But we have a couple of ones in Europe as well. We're working with Advertima, for instance. So I think in the approach it's quite interesting. There are some differences if you look at Epic, if you look at North America, if you look at Europe, but I think again the underlying foundation is quite the same, but it's a big topic. Everyone is talking about it and everyone is watching each other, right? So I think there's barely any retailer right now who's not thinking about implementing something like this because they see what the
even the really big advertising groups, they're now really into that. They're investing heavily, and we're still really early in the game. And when you think, Europe, forget about the US. Everyone in the US told us we're 3, 4, 5 years behind Europe. It's very rarely we hear that, but in that case. So in regards to in-store, we're talking about in-store retail media. We're not talking about online. Obviously, Amazon, they're doing 40 billion, whatever they do. But we will talk about this afternoon a lot about this. But the vast majority is like listing, which product is first, on an Amazon page or so. That's all, contributed as retail media. But we really want to focus on what can we do at the point of sale. And where do we place screens? Is it on the parking lot? Is it at the entrance? And this is more an audience game, a typical digital out-of-home audience game. And once you're inside the store, once the screen is right on the shelf, once you're coming close to the checkout or so, then we talk about retail media, where it's a direct attribution. It's a checkout. You can really see, how it's changing. And also, having little sensors there, obviously, maybe even a sensor per screen. Each screen has a sensor, so you can really measure the real-time thing. And the real-time platform is a challenge. Not many can do that. That's often, we're talking about milliseconds. And it's much tougher than digital out of home. It's much, much tougher.
Absolutely.
Cool, fantastic. We're running out of time. 4 seconds. We're so on time. Fantastic. Good. Iman and Jan, thanks a lot for the interesting insights. We will do more retail media this afternoon, and it's a fascinating topic. So please, when you go home, when you fly home next week, look a little bit around that. Also, you can check invidis.com, invidis.de. We're reporting daily about that. It's really, really fascinating, and there's a lot to learn. And it's really fascinating because it's real time, it's sensors, and it's cool stuff. I really like it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.